see me? You got to type. You got to type, or I don't know you exist.
Someone raised their hand.
I don't know. Oh, there's a Q&A section. Oh no, that's different. Where's
the chat?
Participants?
There's participants and chat. Yeah.
Oh, viewers. Okay. All right. Now I see people.
Yeah. Let's see. Hey guys, we're gonna start in like 2 minutes. Want to help us kick it off with like some questions that we can start diving into to start the topic flowing? Just type it in chat. What you want us to talk about, or what questions you have?
Just type stuff in the chat. And we'll go from there. And so, Josiah, you're going to go and like do technical things, then I'll sit here and answer people's questions.
Yeah, it takes me about 5 minutes to get everything set up while we're going. So Paul's going to kind of kick it off with just anything you guys want to talk about, and I'll chime in as I go.
All right. Nobody gives a shit. They're all quiet. Or maybe they're madly typing out some massive thing. You guys want to talk about, and I'll chime in.
Are they being quiet? See ya. Here. Okay.
So there's,
hi
guys. Now you've got some feedback, echoey crap going on.
Well, I was yeah, it should be on
okay.
Now.
All right. Yeah, it's gone now.
Yeah, it's just for a second.
It sounds like we're going to do that Kickstarter.
Yeah.
Yeah. Which means we're going to have lots of... here we go. Here we go. Somebody's got something. Adam Hicks, if that's his real name. Wasn't prepared for this. First time I've caught this from start. What type of questions are you looking for?
Whatever you want to talk about.
Let's go with purple questions.
Purple? No, let's not go with purple questions.
What kind of questions? What does that mean? What kind of questions about permaculture? I'm thinking.
I want inquisitive questions. That's what I'm looking for.
What would be a question that's not a permaculture question that would be good for our show? We could talk about
business stuff.
We could talk about the new Verizon Unlimited.
Yeah, no kidding.
All the internet shit we've been talking about the last couple of weeks, trying to see if we can get this online streaming thing going with the PC and the ATC.
Yeah, we do a lot of technical stuff and business stuff. We could talk about that a little bit too.
Yeah, you and I do. We talk about a lot of behind the scenes things, but I'm not sure people give a damn about that. I would like to think that most of the people watching this are like power gardeners, like, you know.
Yeah, or there are a lot of people, at least our students, a lot of them are starting their own farms and starting their own little businesses. So
I could talk about all of our adventures with our well.
Oh God, yes. I have an awesome story too that I'll get to in a little bit. But the well story.
The show's officially started now. So we were kind of thinking that like in the future, about 5 minutes before the show starts, we could have people like throw in a couple of questions to kind of fill the time for the first 5 minutes while Josiah is taking care of technical stuff. And I'll babble on about whatever it is people ask. But the show's officially started. And one of the things I thought would be good to talk about is when you're living in the country, so this is not necessarily a homesteading thing, but a country living thing, which homesteading, I think is always country living. There might be some people that are like, trying to do the homesteading thing, urban style, and that's okay, but that's not me. But okay, our well, one morning, like almost 2 weeks ago, more than a week, like maybe a week and a half ago or so, almost 2 weeks ago, we didn't have any water, and so we go out and look in the cistern, and the cistern is empty, and it's kind of like, uh-oh. So then we've had this happen before because we had a leak in our system, and it just, the pump would. There's two pumps. There's the primary pump, which is down deep at the bottom of the well, and then there's the secondary pump, which moves water from the cistern into a pressure tank, so that way it provides pressurized water to the house and the hydrants and stuff like that. And so the cistern was empty, and we've had that happen before, and it was a leak in our system where the hydrants one of the hydrants had a leak, is what it turned out to be. And Fred fixed that last summer. And for the last 2 PDCs we've had water shortages. And we thought that our well just didn't provide very much water, but it turns out it was a leak. And so now we got lots of water until about 2 weeks ago. So Jim is an electronics dude who's one of our residents, one of our full-time residents. And he and Fred got together and went over the system and came to the conclusion that there's a short in the pump at the bottom of the well, 300 feet down. At least we thought it was 300 feet down. When we're going to pull it up, we're kind of thinking like, okay, if it's 300 feet down, it's probably poly pipe that goes from, the top of the well down to the pump. We open it up, and I'm used to seeing like a rope right there where you could grab hold of the rope and pull the whole thing out. And there was no rope. Oh no. Oh no. So it's like, all right. We can do this. We can see it. We can see it's down there about 6 feet inside the well. And the well's like, 6 inches in diameter. And so we're thinking like, okay, oh wow, look at all this stuff. It just appeared in the chat. Okay, so we get some stuff tied up to it, some ropes and some stuff. And we're estimating that the weight of all of it is probably about 300 pounds. We're thinking like, okay, so there's going to be a bunch of poly pipe that goes from the pump, which is down 300 feet up to the top. And then there's going to be, all of the electrical wires, which might weigh, 100 pounds or so. And then there's going to be the pump itself. So we're thinking about 300 pounds. So we tied a bunch of rope onto it, and then we got it hauled up where the top of the pipe is just at the top of the well opening. And then we added some straps just in case. So we've got plan A and plan B. And we used the tractor to help lift it up. And so we're feeling pretty good about it. And then the rope broke. And it's like, the rope broke? I mean, that was a pretty heavy-duty rope. And then once it dropped a few inches, that was enough to break the straps. And then it all went down inside the well. That 6 inches wide well. It's all down in there. And it's like, okay, so I get my flashlight. Hey, I want to see my flashlight? Huh? So I get my flashlight out. I'm thinking like, this is an incredibly powerful flashlight. I'm going to shine it down there. We're going to see how far down it is. We just see infinite hole. And it's like, oh no, this can't be good. So eventually we find out about like if you take a mirror and you get the sun to be reflected down there. And it was a cloudy day, but as luck should have it, we got this moment of sunshine and we had a mirror, and that did help. What we saw is, yeah, that's a long ways down there. That is like 50 feet down there. It's so far down there. All right, so we then Fred fashioned up, he cobbled up a hook, and we went and we bought like 100 feet of steel cable, tied it to the hook, and Fred went fishing for about 4 hours until he hooked that thing, and we managed to bring it up. And so we're thinking it might be more than 300 pounds, but we're not sure. And we get it up, and we find out that the first link is steel pipe. And it's like, okay, there's probably poly pipe attached to that. So we have a system for lifting it out using the tractor. And the tractor can lift a ton. And so we know definitely under a ton. So we lift, and then we lower, and we lift, and we lower. And then Fred and the guys came up with like some interesting contraptions to keep it from falling back in. And we get that link out, 20 foot of pipe, which is pretty standard for wells, as each link is 20 feet. And there's another piece of pipe underneath that piece of pipe. So now we're thinking like, no poly pipe. And then better part of a day later, we've got more than 300 feet of pipe pulled out, and it still seems mighty heavy. In the end, it turns out our well is 600 feet deep.
Nice.
And so we got all of that out. And
that must have been a really expensive well to dig. To drill.
I think so, because it turned out really expensive in order to be able to replace the pump. So I think that just the cost of just the pump, to replace just the pump, which we got a slightly more powerful pump than what was installed, but just the cost of the pump, I believe it was $1,800 for just the yeah. Well, you got to need a pretty good pump to pump 600 feet. Yeah.
How far up does the water go? Like, how far down is it before you hit water?
That's a great question. You just come right on over here and you
start measuring,
and then you tell us.
Yeah.
Because what we've gone through now has been, did I mention it's been damn near 2 weeks? So, fortunately, we've got a couple of boots here. We call them boots. They're part of the Permaculture boot camp who are helping out. And Kai helped out some. And then Jim has been helping out with some of the electronic stuff. But Fred runs the boot camp. So we get the whole thing out. Man, I still have this cough. We get the whole thing out, find the short. We put the new pump on, and then we're going to go put it back in. And then somebody says, "Well, why don't we do polypipe?" And what we've learned is that polypipe doesn't work that deep. I mean, even if you've got like a cable holding onto the pump, so that the pump is not hanging off the end of the polypipe, that the polypipe just can't hold its own weight at that length. Polypipe does not work that. So it's like, okay, so now we know why they have the steel pipes. And then one of the guys was kind of pointing at the steel pipes, and he's saying, like, I think that pipe looks a little thin right there, like a little bit of rust got started right there. You see that? And it's on like half the pipes, and it's like, should we do something about that? Should we just reuse this pipe and it'll be okay? So then the guys got the idea of cutting off the existing threads. And then they went to a local place that had, the gear to be able to put new threads on it. And so put new threads on each of the pipes. So each of the pipes has been shortened by 3 inches. And we got one extra piece of pipe to compensate to get us to the right length for the right depth. So it's all, so the pump is all back inside. The short is fixed. Apparently the motor was seized, was part of it, and it's all back in there, which took a hell of a long time to get it back in there, and then we go to start it up again, and we learn that the controller is shot. So right now Jim is in Missoula picking up a new part for the controller. And Jim's a solder jockey, so it's like, oh, why buy a whole new one? I could just solder in a new capacitor, no problem. I was like, oh wow, cool, all right. And so hopefully, here in a couple of hours, the cistern will start filling again. That's my story. So I have not had a proper shower in a long time.
Yeah, you're pretty stinky right now, right? Which is, nothing new.
Okay. Look at all this stuff coming in. Are you reading all of this?
Yeah, briefly I did. Well, geez, there's more now. Adam's sharing resources. It looks like he says been attempting to add these to several conversations with Paul that Paul's been involved in. It's an energy chart from Saul Griffith that shows all U.S. energy sources and tracks their usage. He has used this to create a company where he's focused his innovations on impacting these. Uses it as a smart or a sort of market identifier, the energy chart. Honestly, the chart is impressive, but challenging to use. The first talk from one of the creators is very insightful on the chart. The second is just interesting to watch. So apparently there's multiple talks you can watch, which 5 minutes. I don't know.
You know,
We'll have to review them first to see if they're worthy.
so maybe Josiah, maybe you can check that out, because I like the part where I just show up and I go blah blah blah, and then I turn it all off and I get on with my life. I like the part that, because there's a ton of work involved in like each video.
Oh yeah.
I mean, I've put a bunch of videos up on YouTube. I've got a pretty clear idea of what work is involved. And the thing I like about this show is you do all that work. I don't have to do anything.
Yeah, you even
I just show up.
Was it you or someone would put in a Permies post like, how do we do this? What's involved with this? And so I replied with not everything, but like, all right, well, this is kind of how the flow works. And I'm writing it, and I'm going, I could do a lot of this in the time I just spent explaining what I do. Yeah, it's a ton of work.
You get a system down, you get pretty good at it. It's kind of like with podcasts. You know, Jack edits it himself. Mm-hmm. And then he posts it himself, and he's got it all, a bunch of it kind of automated, but that's his thing. He's going to spend some time recording it, then he's going to spend a couple of hours massaging it, and then he's going to put it up.
Yep.
And for me, when I record a podcast, I'm kind of like, I got the device, and then I shut it off, and then I want to like
hand it to someone.
Oh, it's got a thing on it there. Oh, get it on you.
Yeah. So that's what this show is.
Yeah, it's like that. Here, just take this. Okay.
Here's stuff.
Yeah, it's got something on it. You might want to look at that.
Well, I have been getting a lot of appreciation emails from the viewers, so thank you guys. It does mean a lot. Yeah.
I saw some place where there was a big love fest for this show. So, Hey!
Yeah, we actually, someone wrote in and was like, my husband is not into permaculture, but now he watches your show, and that's awesome. So, that's good. Okay, so
I'd like to talk more to people that are like in Australia and hear more from them about like how purple is permaculture in Australia.
I would think it's more purple than in the United States.
See, now my understanding is that the opposite is true.
Oh, really?
So it's pretty purple in the United States. It's like there's a lot of stuff where you go to it, and it's like they're permaculture and purple, they believe is together forever. And they even go so far as to say that you can't have permaculture without the purple. And that's where Mollison's kind of like he's complained about Americans who believe this.
Right. Okay. So
I think that you and I believe out of the two of us, I'm probably 10 times more purple than you.
I would agree.
But if I'm standing next to some people in the permaculture community here in the United States, they are like 20 times more purple than me.
Yeah, and those are people that I'm really not around a lot. So that's probably why I have the opinion that the United States doesn't have as many purple people, because I'm not exposed to the purple people. I avoid the purple people. I do not attract the purple people. So.
When I was a child, I heard a thing about a purple people eater.
Purple people eaters. Yep.
Yeah. Apparently it's a thing. I didn't know.
It's purple people eaters is commerce.
It was a silly little song that was played around Halloween.
I've heard purple.
I haven't heard of it.
Well, I've heard the words "purple people eater" from like Jack. I think Jack said that once or something.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so he sent this chart, Adam. That thing. I just want to share with this because I just pulled it up and it's crazy. It is nuts. Let's see here.
Okay, so you're going to show it to me.
Yeah, I'm not going to.
Here it comes.
We're not going to dive into it. But holy crap!
Look at that.
Ain't it shiny? Oh my gosh. There's a ton of stuff in here. Yeah, so I'll spend a good 10, 15 minutes looking at this. We could talk about it next show, maybe.
Well,
just to get an understanding of it. You got
one
something?
of my peeps asked a question. And so this is one of my Patreon supporters.
Yeah, I got it.
I forwarded it on to you.
Yep. Okay. This is Julia, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
And so I'm going to read her question.
All right.
Ready? I have a friend.
You don't sound like a Julia.
You're going to have to use your imagination.
All right.
All right. I have a friend with 12 acres in the San Francisco Bay Area, on the edge of Castro Valley, as if I know what that is. So getting into the Oakland Hills. I've heard of Oakland before. Their land is sloped, not terribly steep, and mostly in pasture. He's got some sheep, some poultry, some established trees, mostly gathered together at the low point of the property. Whenever I try to talk to him about water retention, swales and berms for his fruit trees, keyline plowing, he says he can't do anything because he has a hard layer 2 feet down or less, and retaining water will just lead to landslides. I know landslides are a thing in that area, but is it true there's nothing he can do?
Bravo. Well read.
Thank you.
Great question. It's a great question, and it's asked a lot, especially during PDCs, because people are like, "Won't water go under and like push everything off the hill?"
So I think that the concern is very real. I want to point out that I want to point at my property for a moment. Now I've got two. I've got the lab, which is a couple hundred acres with incredibly deep soil, and then very close by is base camp, which is like a 20-acre rock, and so it's just one giant rock, which is part of. It's had this whole mountain range named after it. You might have heard of it, called the Rocky Mountains. I don't know if you've heard of that before.
Never.
So it's made out of rock. That's why they call it the Rocky Mountains. So the thing is like, I go out with a shovel and I'm like, I'm going to plant a seed, and then it goes bing, bing. The thing is there's no soil. I'm looking right at that rock, that giant rock. I'm looking at that rock. And so then one might say that the whatever soil used to be here has already slid off and gone away. Kind of like what this person is worried about having happen. However, I also want to point out that we did something. Because we're in the Rocky Mountains, this particular property is kind of steep. It's got cliffs and steepy things all over it. We have a thing we call the volcano, even though it's not really a volcano, but it's like this little mountain. So basically my 20-acre plot might be, more like 30 acres just because of all of the steepness is made more acres, including the volcano. It's like if there wouldn't be much there if the volcano was flat instead, but because there's a steep volcano in the middle of the property, it's kind of like
more property.
I have more. It's like I have more property. I buy 20 acres, get 10 acres free, kind of a thing. So,
this is why vertical gardening is so popular.
So, it's like your only option, sort of. Yeah. But it's kind of like we wanted to go up there more, and so at first, I walked up there a bunch of different times, and it made me breathe hard.
It's good.
And I got to thinking, like, hey, it'd be convenient as if there's a way to kind of drive up there or whatever. And there's also, so I happen to have a 14-ton excavator with a rock bucket on it. And that means a bucket that's like, the steel is super thick. It's really crappy at trying to dig through clay and certain soils, but it's awesome at beating the crap out of rocks. And so we took it up there to beat the crap out of the rocks, and we beat a road up there all the way to the top of the caldera. And so the moral of the story is that this clay, is it, that's underneath the dirt, is probably softer than my rocks.
Yeah.
And then if you, so what I did is as I'm building this road, I rip rocks out from one point and I drop them slightly downhill, and that makes for a flat spot, which I then make into a snaky shape that slowly, gently goes up the hill, goes up to, up a mountain of sorts, and then we can drive up there if we want to, and which we have. And if you walk up there, you don't, you probably breathe about as hard, but it's like you can pace yourself. We actually have a lot of lovely benches up there now too, so you can kind of sit, take it easy. We'll see soon, Josiah. You'll be here, and I'll point at it and say, "Hey, go up there and fetch me a rock," right?
Yeah.
So, stuff like that.
Maybe a purple person can come with me. We could sit on the bench together.
Yeah. Somebody was saying that Sepultur's a hippie, and so one time I asked Sepultur, I said, "Are you a hippie?" And his answer was, "Are you?" And Jack once asked me that if I'm a hippie. Yeah. And I had to think about it a while, and I came back with this response, and I said, "You know what? I think I am a hippie, and the reason is that that's where all the most beautiful women are. The most beautiful women to me, are hippies. Therefore, I must be a hippie."
Or you prey on the hippie.
I don't think that's...
No. That was a poor choice of wording.
Sepultur never committed one way or the other on this topic. So, but I have no problem at all. So,
I was raised by hippies, so therefore I know better. No, I'm kidding. I got no problem with hippies as long as they don't try and make laws that affect me. As long as they keep the laws away from me, I'm happy. Brian says, "I mean, just the hair and beard grooming is taxing for Paul." Smiley face.
I think I woke up the other morning, and my policy is that whenever I wake up in the morning and my beard is all smashed off the one side, that's when I know it's time to trim my beard. When I have like bedhead on my beard, I know it's time to trim.
Oh, I think it's just time to start sleeping on the other side. So it pushes the other way.
And so I had that problem, but it's like with the water not running, I kind of thought I would wait. So
Yeah.
This is going to go away really soon. This is about as bushy as I'll let it get.
How far down will you trim it?
However far the buzzy trimmers.
I have buzzy trimmers with one setting. That's how far.
It's got a little thing you clip on it, and then they just leave it on there, and that's what it is. I don't know. I don't hold a ruler up to it. I don't care.
I do all the there's like number 1, number 2, number 3. My trimming and maintenance is very low. I do it by the season. So it's spring, so I have trimmed it a little. And then when summer comes, I'll probably be bald and just have kind of a beard going. In winter, I'm a hairy mess.
For me, it seems like something I do every 3 or 4 months.
Yeah.
And even then, I kind of wonder, am I really this vain that I'm going to, trim it? And it turns out that after a while, I do get kind of annoyed, and so I trim it. So. But all right, so now, rather than talk about grooming, let's talk about Julia's question.
Okay.
So,
yeah, I forgot. How did we get on that? Anyway.
The whole thing about stuff sliding down the hill to visit the neighbors, I think that's a valid concern, an important thing to embrace and be worried about. And so then part of my thinking is like, what if you planted a bunch of taprooted trees around? Wouldn't that kind of anchor a lot of that into the hillside?
Yes. Yeah, my first thoughts were taprooting plants to get into that clay, And then my second thought was, what would be the right sequence because a lot of people want to do the earthworks first so that they're not smashing all the plants that they have planted. And so, but then the concern is that, okay, so I do the earthworks, I plant my stuff, and then rain comes and stuff's not established yet and it still washes away. So another thought is that how deep into this clay are you going? Like you were saying with the rock, at least with clay, you can actually go into the clay. And so if that water is going into a swale or a key line, and it's deep enough that it hits the clay and doesn't topple over or topple into the topsoil, well, now you have a ditch, essentially. Because the whole point in a swale is to get water to go into that topsoil, because you want to retain water in the topsoil. If you do it into clay, well, then you've just created a ditch because the water can't get through the clay. But that's where the taprooting plants come into hand, so that you can start building topsoil into the clay or turning that clay into topsoil. And sorry for taking your wind there, Paul. Go.
So my first thought is to plant lots of taprooted plants, especially trees. But then I kind of thought, depending on the amount of slope that there is, the taproot might actually not go straight down, but it might just go downhill. In which case, it didn't really buy you much of what you're looking for. And then on top of that, there's the whole thing of like, before you start planting a bunch of trees, do your earthworks first. And so it's like, okay, so what is the solution? And I would think, because Sepp Holzer has some of that problem too. And then one of the videos, there was a lot of concern about this very thing happening. And that's why he makes terraces.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's kind of like you end up creating some steeper spots, but then you also end up making some pretty broad terraces. So then, in fact, it's like the steeper spots are just right next to the terrace that you've made. And then everything between the terraces is exactly the same as what it was before. And then I think what he does is he goes through, and the first thing he does is he makes terraces that are pretty far apart. And then once things get really well established on those terraces, then he might go through and make another terrace between two terraces.
So for those that don't know what terraces are, a simple explanation I give is steps. Just picture steps going down a mountain or a hill. That's about as simple as you can get with terraces.
Sure. Does this program have the ability to draw on it? Can we draw?
Yeah, go to share screen. Click share screen and then click whiteboard.
Ooh.
We'll draw you stairs.
Share screen. And then, okay, I clicked on share screen and I don't...
You should see whiteboard.
I don't see whiteboard. I see on my browser windows.
Okay.
All right. I'm watching, it says you're viewing Josiah Wallingford's screen.
Yeah, you should be seeing something.
All right, there you scribbled. I see you scribbling.
Yeah. So if you don't have that, let me make you host, because that might be why. Make co-host. Okay. All right, now I'll stop sharing. Now go to screen share and see if you have whiteboard.
I see a list of, I see desktop 1, desktop 2, and I see my software that I've loaded up. No.
Analyst.
No.
More. Okay, I will make you the host and see what happens.
It says you are the host now.
Yeah, you're in total control. So don't mess anything up. If you
don't tell me what to do.
So now close screen share if you've got it open, and then open it again and see if it gives you whiteboard. Hey, what's happening? Oh, now you're sharing all kinds of stuff. You're sharing your whole desktop so we could see everything you were looking at. I still have whiteboard.
All right. why don't you draw for people
All right.
what a terrace looks like? Because I think the people watching this know what a terrace looks like, and you're the dude that's worried about it anyway.
Well, I just want to appease all, or help all.
I can draw on your screen. I can't, apparently.
Oh, wait. Remote control. Give mouse keyboard control to Paul Wheaton. There you go. Hey.
All right. Can I change the color now?
Yeah. Just click Format on up there where it's red.
Options.
You were just on it.
Nah. All right. Never mind. Here's the basic idea. You're going to cut into the hillside, probably not that steep, and then you're going to, take that material that you just cut out, and you're going to flop it over here.
Yeah.
So you'll notice over here, it's the exact same slope as before. And up here, it's the exact same slope as before. Whereas here, you've got a flat spot. So if this decides to like slide off, it'll probably stop right about here on this terrace as it slides off. Blorp. Now, right in here, you're going to be able to. You're deep into your clay now. You've kind of cut a big part in there. So basically, what you've done is that now there's risk here with this stuff. This stuff tends to want to go downhill more. So when it gets sloppy wet, it might want to push everything else down the hill. So you want to start planting right in here, like right away with all your, heavy duty super seed taprooty stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But the thing is that eventually you're going to plant some taprooty stuff over here too. And it's going to go deep into this clay. And in fact, most of the stuff that you plant anywhere on this terrace is going to get a good chance to go straight down into the clay and help break it up and get things going there. Although most of the time, taprooty stuff doesn't like to go into like that intensive clay. It tends to like hang a hard left and just, stay above that at once. But all right. The key is that right here, you've exposed your subsoil. And whatever you grow in there is going straight into the clay, and that's its only choice. And then once it starts doing that, everything starts to have an anchor into the clay to keep it from sliding down the hill. That's my point. So I would say that first of all, she mentions keyline plowing, and I'm kind of thinking like, really? Keyline? So it must not be too terribly steep then, if they're talking about keyline.
He said it wasn't terribly steep, no.
Yeah. So if a tractor can go up there and not roll over, then it must be much shallower than what I just drew, is my guess.
And yes, and what they're getting, but you can still do terraces on pretty low grades. So you could still do terraces. They're just wider terraces, the shallower the area. I want to put a little more into this. So I'm going to clear this out. I'm going to go with brown and a line, something like that. And then I probably can't do that. Clear. Okay. Draw freehand, brown, just like Paul did. There's your topsoil. And then I'm going to put a red for clay. Okay. So there's your clay on the slope, and then there's your topsoil. So your grass or whatever you got, is on top of the topsoil. So what Paul is saying is that you're cutting, and I'll use a different cutting. We'll do red. We'll stick with red. So when you're cutting, you're cutting here and then across. Okay, so your topsoil is this is all going away, right? Damn it! I can't.
Oh, Josiah.
It erases the whole thing. Shoot. I was hoping, okay, so I would just be erasing this section right here. So you don't see this little red and the topsoil in this L. Okay, because that all goes away, and now you're just exposed here.
Well, it goes downhill. It goes to the downhill side.
It goes away from this area, and then it goes here.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah.
Yeah.
And creating your steps. So I was trying to make it more visually appealing, but failed due to technical difficulties. I need a whiteboard.
Well, there's probably some kind of drawing software you can use, and you know, something that you're really used to, and you can draw much better at. All right.
Anyway,
the question is being able to do EarthWorks, right? I mean, this is a particular scenario, and it's like, well, the guy doesn't want to do EarthWorks because, you know, it could all slide down the hill, and I kind of feel like, well, then don't do the whole thing. Just do a part. Just do a couple of spots. And yeah. I kind of feel like with a lot of the systems, I mean, step one, learn about EarthWorks, which seems, I mean, I'm amazed when I start talking about EarthWorks to people how there's so much of this that they don't know. And so learn about EarthWorks. Then it's kind of like, okay, today we're going to work out an acre. So this guy's got 12 acres. Was that right? Yeah, 12 acres. So we're going to make a plan for an acre. And maybe it'll take us a year, maybe 2 years to get this acre to really sing for us. But we're going to start off renting a small excavator to come up here and, you know, do some things. We're going to put in a terrace. Now, you mentioned swales. And it's kind of like you've been listening to Jeff Lawton. And listening to Jeff Lawton's always a good idea. But the guy is just bonkers about swales. And so I think that we're talking about a northern climate, a cooler climate. And I think that it's okay to have like 10% in swales. But the rest of it should be not swales. And still we want to add texture to the landscape. And so I think that a terrace is going to be good. I like the idea of adding hugelkultur, and whether or not you can do hugelkultur is going to depend on like what materials you have on hand and things like that. But the important part is, I think digging a terrace and you're getting down to the clay layer and well into that clay layer, and you're embracing that clay layer, that's a big part of it. And it's like now you're hooked into it. You got it. Now, of course, there's comedy to be had with clay. When it rains, you might want to make sure that your terrace slopes a little bit to the downhill, just so that when the water comes, you're not making a mud puddle.
5 degrees.
Something slight.
Yeah.
You want to make sure you don't want to have mud puddles.
Yeah.
Now it's possible you might want to make a pond at some point, and then really dig into that hillside to make a pond. At least that pond's going to seal easy because of all the clay. But that would add some texture to the landscape. That would be pretty cool. But now you're going to make a dam, and you're probably going to make sure that the dam has a key.
And you need a big terrace.
Yeah. So, you know, there's some things to design. But the key is that out of all of this stuff, embrace your fear about this. You know, mitigate those concerns. Because the problems and the risks are significant. So be thinking about when is your wet season, and then start work shortly after the wet season. Get a lot of stuff to grow in there. And then plus at the same time, I think I should qualify this. Like, we don't know exactly how steep this is. I I would kind of like want to know how steep it is before jumping in on something like this myself. And I'm not there. I don't really know. So
it just says slope, not terribly steep. So I'm guessing it's still pretty steep. Now she did say, Julia said, she did mention swales and berms and key lines. So, another point that Paul just made, or important point, is the wet seasons, because in that area you get tremendous dry seasons followed by tremendous wet seasons, and that's why a lot of the reason why landslides are such an issue there. The other big reason landslides are such a big issue is because a lot of the foliage uphill is being taken away to build houses and roads and stuff. So, anyway, those are the points I have. Yeah, I think you're spot on with some terraces. As far as ponds go, I'm a little hesitant. Well, first of all, ponds on slope, the more slope there is, the more expensive and risky ponds become. And the more difficult they become too, which is why they're more expensive to build. So just something to keep in mind.
I think I would start with adding in a lot of terraces, and then in some spots you might have a wider patch of terrace than others, and that might be a spot for some kind of pond, especially since as you dug into that hillside, you started to expose a fair bit of clay. Of course, the problem is that, like, if you have a mud puddle that forms on a dam to a pond, then that's when the whole dam and pond might go downhill to its neighbors. So you've got to design your dam in such a way that it has a crown on top, so that way water will flow off of it and keep the dam dry. Because if you don't do that, once water gets into the dam, then it becomes scary.
One thing that is nice about the description of the land here is that clay does play very nicely with ponds. So the more clay you have, the easier ponds it becomes. The other thing you had mentioned was the 1 acre kind of deal. So when doing 1 acre out of 12. So my suggestion is when you have a large piece of property or any large area that you're working with, that you do a whole property design, which is a general design, a base understanding of what kind of earthworks would work where, things like that. So you're designing the whole property that way. And then you're segmenting, you take that design and build little chunks, like 1 acre chunks, and design intensively those 1 acres and work on them as you go, if you're going to do it that way. Or that's how I prefer.
Oh, yeah. You do an acre. Don't do any more than an acre each year generally. But you're going to go out and you're going to, rather than like gardening traditionally, where you're like, I'm going to get out the rototiller and I want to go till this, 1/4 acre patch where I'm going to grow all my stuff in rows. Rather than doing that, your work is going to be on like building up a 1/4 acre each year, or maybe more, depending on a variety of things. And it's kind of like, well, what are you going to do with this 1/4 acre or 1/2 acre or acre? And so instead of doing the whole property, then you're going to do just some of it.
Yeah. Yeah, you're doing the intensive design on the smaller part, the sections.
Yeah.
And the smaller an area of design is, the more intense the design becomes, because you're very specific on what you're designing. Because you have more narrower vision, and so that's why we do the whole property design, a quick design, or not a quick design, but a general design. And so you just understand the basics of, this is the property, this is where the water is going to be flowing, this is where the sun is going to be going, things like that. And your zones are going to be. And then from there, when you break into those smaller chunks, that's when you get into the really nitty gritty of each small area. All
right, on a different topic. So here we are in Montana. It is the 21st of March. I don't know about you, but where I am near Missoula, spring has sprung. I mean, we've been just caked in ice and snow all winter, which is weird for us. Usually, it'll snow and melt and snow and melt and snow and melt. And this year and last year, one solid cake of ice and snow. So that stuff's mostly gone now. And we're starting to see little growies pop up all over the place. The days are getting longer. It's like, man, spring it's early spring right now. So there's that. Now, yesterday, went out and checked on the growies, and there were some exposed sunchokes. So we dug out some sunchokes, and they were crisp. And last night Jocelyn cooked them, and this morning we experienced comedy.
Yes. Now you're really wishing you had some water.
So I think that the important thing is that I've eaten sunchokes dozens of times, and there's only been a couple of times when I've experienced the side effect that people talk about. Now, some people eat just a little bit, and then they're in some extreme pain.
Mm-hmm.
And then I would say that most people don't notice anything. It's like their life is naturally flatulent.
You there? Hello. Hey, can you guys, if you can hear me, say I can hear you, Josiah. And if you hear Paul or don't hear me, don't say anything because you can't hear me. I'm wondering if we lost Paul. All right, you can hear me. So in describing the flatulence, he must have come up with a case of it, or his internet just went down. While we wait for him to get back, the couple of things. Hey, you're back. So you were talking about flatulence. And he's gone again. Nice. Paul. So anyway, spring is here for me, but not like what Paul has. So I live further north than Paul, about 2 hours further north. And where I am at in Flathead Valley, Montana, when it snows, it usually stays. So we don't get that. It snows, and then the sun comes out and melts it, and then it snows again like Paul's experiencing. Where I'm at, it snows, and then it doesn't melt, and then it snows, and then it doesn't melt, and it's pretty much like that for about 4 or 5 months. And so it's a little colder where I'm at. We're about 2 hours north of Paul, and a little colder where I'm at. So, hey, Paul, you're back. Flatulence?
I am back. Don't give me ideas.
I was just explaining to him that I'm in a little colder area, so I don't get the springy growies. So I haven't gotten to eat artichoke hearts yet. And sunchokes. Sorry.
Yeah, Jerusalem artichokes.
Yeah. Boy, we had those at Jack's.
Tubers, tubers in the ground.
Now I don't think I ever had them that young, because at Jack's they grow pretty much year round.
They grow year round here. Well, I wouldn't say grow year round.
Right.
It can be harvested year round. So like for almost anything, it's kind of like, okay, I'm going to harvest this, and then I'm going to do stuff to make it last a long time. But with sunchokes, then you just go out any time of the year and harvest them. Mm-hmm. Although I've heard that like around June or so, they're a little mushy, and you don't really want them. But in June, you've already got a bunch of other stuff to eat.
Yeah, so do you think it has something to do with the time of year? Like, they made you gassy and more now, but do you think come like May or...
I think that's possible.
You're willing to give it another shot?
I think it's possible. I'm open to that idea. I also think it has a lot to do with how it's cooked.
Uh-huh.
So I've got a video up on YouTube about some people that are like doing some serious testing to find out like how much land do you need if you're going to get 100% of your food from your land. And Sunchokes have like the highest number of calories per acre. So then this guy, he's eating a lot of Sunchokes because he's trying to like find the minimal amount of land that he can live on without adding inputs to the land.
Yeah.
And so Sunchokes are a big player. And then he says basically he's got like a pot of Sunchokes going on the stove year round. And he's eating from that pot. So then, I'm guessing that the Sunchokes are probably cooking a good day or two before he's eating them.
He's probably got really clean bowels. Like, everything's really got to be pretty clean.
It's been well blasted out.
Well, there's a lot of people that go to these, like, what are they? They're like enema clubs or something, where they just go get blasted out themselves. They pay to have someone give them an enema to clean everything out, and they do that like once a week or a month or something. Periodically.
One thing I've learned about this world is a lot of people are really bored. They need something to pass the day, I guess.
I think if you're eating a lot of McDonald's, that's probably a smart thing to do. Go get yourself blasted out.
When I took my PDC, it was in 2005. And there was a gal there. I think her name was Tracy, and so we're kind of waiting for something. And so well, what's your job? What's your job? And so she's telling me that she does like mostly massage at some fancy spa place out on the East Coast.
Mm-hmm.
And so she's like talking about her job and the things that she does, and so then it comes up of this whole thing about a Brazilian, and it's the first time I've ever heard of this Brazilian. So you're talking about people going and getting in. What I'm saying is at a PDC, I first learned, and I'm kind of like, I don't think that's true. I think you're pulling my leg. And
what's a Brazilian? Like a Brazilian, like when they wax, like rip and wax, that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Oh my. Okay.
And I was like, no one's going to do that. No one's going to have it done, and no one's going to say that's my job. That's what I do. And she's like, all I can tell you is that that's what I do. I get paid a lot of money to do that, and I'm not believing it. And so, of course, it turns out to be totally true. A lot of people do this, and a lot of people have this job of doing this. And so you're talking about people going and getting this, colon cleanse thing. Yeah. It's like, I'm kind of like, really? And then I'm telling you my story about how I learned about such thing as a Brazilian.
Well, okay, so when you're talking about when you talk about the hippie stuff, I think that the colon cleansing is probably more on the hippie side than the Brazilian waxing. Like, those are on different spectrums of extremes. Well, now there's also, you don't have to get enemas. You could do like not fasting. What's it called? Where you drink vegetable broth for a week.
People do a cleanse or whatever.
Yeah.
I kind of think for a lot of that, like whether there's the Brazilian or the poop thing or the cleanse thing or whatever. I mean, it's like you could do all those things, or you could go and build a chicken coop.
Yeah, and you could grow your own food and eat healthy stuff.
Yeah, or you could build a hugelkultur bed or something like that. And so some people, they would much rather go and give somebody a Brazilian than build a hugelkultur bed. And
oh yeah, but that's because they're on the opposite end of the hippie spectrum.
I don't know.
Yeah. I don't know. Yeah, it's amazing what kind of stuff.
Then there's people that like root for the home team, and it's like there's all this time that is spent in buying the the caps and the shirts and going and watching the game and being, like, oh, I can't miss a game. It's got to be on TV. And it's like, this is very important to them.
Yeah.
And I really don't understand that either. And we're all different. So here we are on this permaculture show, and we're talking about what we're into, which is not that.
Well, we can also make fun of people.
Oh yeah, sure. I remember being at this course. So in 2005, I took my PDC like in January, and then it was in the spring, in April, where I figured out that to do all the things that I want to do, it required community. So I went to, like, in August or so, I went to a course taught by Diana Leaf Christian about community stuff, which was a really good course. And so there's, like, 35 of us or so there, and I'm visiting with these people, and we're, eating lunch or something. There's a woman across from me, and she's explaining to me about how people shouldn't judge. And I explained to her, I'm judging you right now. I'm totally judging you.
And I'll bet you totally had a judgment about you when you said that.
I said, so if you're saying people shouldn't judge, are you saying that, like, you've got some stuff about you don't want people to all judge you about? And now I'm kind of curious what that is, and I want to get all judgy about that. And I kind of feel like I hope people judge me and find me to be fucking awesome.
Yeah, yeah. Well, judging is like how we survived thousands of years.
And then I hope people will judge me, and then they find me to be a psychotic shithead, and then they will keep their distance.
Yeah. Yep, judgments is good.
I kind of am dependent on people being judgy. And then the other thing is people going around saying, you shouldn't be judging people. Those are the people that are judging the most.
Yeah.
And they're like, oh, if you stop judging people, and I keep judging people, well, I win, right? I get everything. Because I'm using what's called intellect to figure shit out. And you're kind of, hobbling yourself there. And so, yay me.
Well, I'm sure they have opinions about someone. They got to be judging someone. Who do you like for president? There's a judge thingy. Like, you're probably going to have a judgment about that. Everybody judges.
Oh,
you have to. You have to survive.
So then she tried to explain to me something about discernment. Oh, no, that's discernment. And I well, you're picking nits. And it's like, so let me just be clear. I'm going to judge you a lot. I'm going to judge him. I'm going to judge her. I'm going to judge all of them. I'm going to judge all these people all day long, every day. Judge. And hopefully, through all this judging, I'm going to make some good decisions, and things are going to go good for me. And if I judge poorly, then I'm going to be very sad. And if I don't judge at all, it's going to end up being pretty much the same as judging poorly. So now, all right, so I'm not exactly sure how we got on this, but I think it had something to do with the hippie thing.
Well, you went to the community. You went to this community event. So you got there from that. How you got to the community thing is beyond me. Speaking of which, if anybody for future episodes, don't have to do it this episode, but in the chat while we're talking, what would be a huge help for me is if you write kind of like what we're talking about. Just headliners, like Josiah talks about chicken poop and enemas, and then Paul talks about Brazilian waxes, stuff like that. That would help me a lot, because it helps in the post-production stuff.
It's a permaculture Brazilian.
You know what? I haven't done the enema thing, and don't plan on doing it. But I have done the cleanse stuff, because there have been times when I've been like, I ate really shitty for the last 3 months, or I've been on road trips or whatever, and it's time to shit all of this out. And so I've done that. It's rough, man. Have you ever done one, a cleanse, yourself?
No.
Okay, so you get like vegetable broth, or you make a vegetable soup, right? Big ass pot of vegetable soup, and you, for like the first 3 days, you only drink the vegetable soup. You don't eat any of the hard stuff in the soup, just the broth, for 3 days. Okay? And that's going to make you shit a lot. And then, after those 3 days, you get 2 days of being able to add a little bit of substance to it. Because by then you're drained. You're like, you have no energy. And then you start adding like some potatoes or carrots or whatever's in the soup and start eating a little bit of that. And then you finish the whole soup eventually, after like day 5, day 6. And then when that's done, you go back to eating a healthy diet. My personal preference is paleo diet. Everybody's got their own. And when that happens, you have so much fucking energy, you feel like you're on cocaine. you get so much energy.
I have no idea what it feels like to be on cocaine.
Oh, I do. It's scary, man. It's fun, but it's stupid, and I don't do it. I did it in Las Vegas. I did it, and then I said, holy shit, I see why people get addicted to this. I'm not doing this. So, anyway, that was my youth. I was younger, much younger, but I have experienced it. Anyway, you haven't even experienced a cleanse. How could you experience Coke?
Yeah, and all that part where you're talking about the cleanse, I didn't hear anything about how much pie you eat or anything like that. So it sounded like going without pie, which I've done. I've gone without pie for
got too fat there for a little bit,
weeks at a time, even without
weeks at a time.
And it's like paleo. I think I do pretty good on paleo. I also do really well on a vegan diet. I've done that before, not like intentionally, but because the person in the house where I was staying was a vegan chef, and it was like, that's all tasty stuff. I could eat this way, forever. But Jacqueline does not do well on a vegan diet, and so
I need my meat.
We did eat paleo or something closer to paleo. I can tell you, I got a weird thing with dairy products, and that is that if I eat dairy, I just kind of go stupid for like a day and a half. I'm just
any kind of is it the lactose? Like, do you get any kind of bowel issues or anything like that from it?
I would say I'm not sure. Sure. Maybe.
And is this like store-bought dairy, or is this like from the farm dairy, or both?
I've tried to do like organic raw dairy and see how that went, and it was like not as extreme. Now, I did do an amazing podcast with Sally Fallon Morell about raw dairy, and she was saying that people that say that they're lactose intolerant, they're actually pasteurization intolerant.
Yeah, that's what I was getting at. Was that if it's from just the store-bought stuff, it's probably because of all the pasteurization, which can fuck you up. How about cheese? Same thing with cheese for you?
Yeah, I don't eat cheese. I do okay with butter, but cheese is, because of course the whole dairy world is so delicious, and yet you're talking about your cleanse sounded like that was some serious sacrificing, and so I do sacrificing that's in the space of dairy, I guess. But
I feel like anytime I have to eat fast food, like a fast food thing, which I don't like doing, I feel like doing a cleanse after eating it. Like, I just feel so shitty after eating fast food. I used to eat fast food a lot when I was like in the military. I'd eat fast food all the time. Go to get a burger or whatever. And now it just kills me. I can't do it.
So Brian Wood cannot live without cheese.
Oh, I love cheese, man. I'm with you, Brian. Cheese. Cheese and potatoes are the hardest thing in the paleo diet. To try and not live with cheese and potatoes. Oh, man.
And Jacqueline doesn't eat gluten, and there's a lot of people that, like, there's this guy on YouTube that makes fun of the gluten people and the gluten-free people and whatnot. And then, of course, South Park did some kind of thing about, like, if you eat gluten, then your dick flies off and explodes.
What?
So then on South Park, everybody's dick kept flying off and exploding.
Oh my!
But Jacqueline will get serious headaches for like 3 days after eating gluten, and so what we eat tends to be free of dairy and gluten.
Adam says, look into A2 milk. I've never heard of that. Supposedly many with lactose intolerance can drink without issue.
See, I don't think this is lactose intolerance. People with lactose intolerance apparently, like shit like a fire hydrant.
Or get severe headaches, like extreme migraines. But I think that's more on the pasteurization side. And all the GMO, all the antibiotics and shit they pump into these cows.
You were saying something about like when you do this cleanse, then afterwards it's like you feel so good, and I kind of feel like, the people that do the raw vegan thing, and this is kind of a fascinating thing. The people who do the raw vegan thing, they feel so good. They feel like they've gained like 20 or 30 IQ points. And everybody around them seems like a dumb clod now.
And they probably have, but that's probably because before they went vegan, they weren't eating good meat.
That's a possibility. But you know what? I want to tell you the same thing that I tell the militant vegans, which is that there are people out there where they get really sick on a vegan diet. And I think that the same can be said for every kind of diet out there. And so I think that it's an individual kind of a thing.
I've heard blood type can have something to do with it. You eat right for your blood type. I don't know how much that's true or not, but I've heard it.
It's either true or it's not. But I think each individual has their own thing, and they got to kind of figure it out. Now, I am sick to death of hearing from vegans about how a vegan diet is better from everybody and that it's been proven. Because what they do is that they compare an organic vegan diet to a toxic shitstorm Western diet. And it's like, that's not fair. That's not cool. Let's do a permaculture omnivore diet and compare that to your best vegan diet. Or how about this? We'll do a permaculture omnivore diet and we'll compare it to a diet which we label as vegan, but it's really Diet Coke and Oreos.
Yeah.
Yeah. And now let's see how we do with that. And we'll say, see, vegan diet turns out to make you really sick.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, there's smart vegans and there's dumb vegans, and there's smart meat eaters and there's dumb meat eaters.
I think there's a lot of lovely, lovely people that are vegans, and it's the militant vegans where it's a problem, and it's not that. And what they want is they want everybody to be a vegan, and it's like it's okay to want things, but the militant vegans don't just want it; they kind of insist.
I think the militant groups of any kind of group, or the militant members of any kind of group, really turn people away from that kind of group. It's the same with permaculture. It's the same with anything really. Now, okay, so Michael just posted these videos. Have you ever heard of Awaken with JP?
I think I've seen like one or two, and it's like how to be something, and so it's like here's got how to become gluten intolerant.
Well, this one, the second one is hilarious. If meat eaters acted like vegans. If you haven't seen it, I'll play it right now for everybody.
There's one that's like there's those two comedian guys, and they've got something about if meat eaters were like vegan, and in the end they're like looking at the cat. But all right, go ahead, play your video.
All right, it's only like 3 minutes long, but it's worth it. Big shout out to this guy. He's hilarious. I can't go full screen. Let's do just that. Okay. And I screwed up there. Sorry, just making it good for everybody here. And okay, go.
That salad's totally grossing me out. I've completely lost my appetite. How long have you been a meat eater for? I only eat meat. I'm going to the Meat Stock Fresh Festival. Are you going? Yeah, I want the tofu spring rolls Except I don't eat tofu, so do you have like a tofu-flavored chicken you can substitute in for me? It's not that vegetable eaters are bad people. It's just that they're terrible people. This sausage is a meat-based vegetable substitute for cucumber. It's got the taste and the texture of an actual cucumber, with none of the cucumber. Eating plants makes your body way too alkaline, which will definitely kill you. Do you really want that? All you need is some meat to be healthy and thrive. You get everything you need from meat. Beef is loaded with carbs. Orcas are even more spiritually evolved than humans, and they only eat seal meat. So that means humans should only eat meat, because it's the most spiritually evolved diet, because of orcas. Plants give off oxygen. Why would you eat them? Do you even know how dangerous deer are when you're driving your car? If you don't kill and eat deer first, you basically want people to get into car accidents. The world's a much safer place if we eat the animals that could eat us. Broccoli? That's what my food eats. That's my food's food, and I don't appreciate you eating that. You should eat Siberian tigers to help them go extinct. It makes it so that they can live on through you and your children for generations to come. The best chance for the survival of their species is for us to kill and eat them. That coconut was going to grow into a palm tree. Why would you eat that? I could never eat plants that are raised in crowded farms and inhumane living conditions with less than 1 square inch of space per stalk, stuck in the soil against their will. Have you ever thought about going meat eater to help save the planet? Or do you just not care about the earth? Have you seen the Kaleспiracy documentary? You gotta see it. It's so heartbreaking seeing how all the plants are killed and the deforestation from the plant farming and unsustainable farming practices. Kale farming is the #1 destroyer of the environment. Once you see it, you'll never eat plants again.
As he redundantly repeated his emotionally charged nutritional opinions at me, I was instantly convinced to become a meat eater.
JP was the most illogical, condescending person I've ever met.
Saying something like that's just a symptom of being overly alkaline. It just makes you mean and you can't think straight. So that you can be a less terrible person, be sure to subscribe to my carnivorous channel.
Alright. That guy cracks me up, man. He's got some good ones out there.
All right, so then here's the one that I was talking about.
Oh, make sure you go with the check boxes at the bottom. Oh, you pasted it. You want me to play it?
I pasted it. What do you?
Oh.
Yeah, because
Okay.
you can play it, and I
You don't have to do anything. Got it.
before.
One more line.
Okay, share screen. That one, that stuff, good. Play.
Girls want more wine. Over there.
So, what are we having, Chef?
Lentil and feta salad and roasted squash.
Smashing. And main course?
That is the main course.
Right. Well, it's just, I don't eat vegetarian.
What do you mean?
I'm a meat eater.
But, Mark, you know Wendy and I are veggie.
Yes, I know, and when you two came round for dinner, we made you a mushroom risotto. And I was sort of expecting you to return the effort. Have some meat, please.
Sorry, I didn't know you felt so strongly about it.
It's an ethical thing. I don't think humans should be treated like this.
No, what can I say? We literally do meat in this house.
Oh, come on, you must have some meat somewhere around here. What was that I saw wandering round earlier?
The cat.
That'll do. I'll have that, with some rice.
No, that's the cat.
Look quite lean and gamey.
But it's ours. It's a pet.
You mean you keep an animal in captivity for no reason? That's barbaric. At least pigs are for sausages.
Ah, no, you see, they're not. They're actually highly intelligent creatures.
Oh yeah, right, they're doing secretarial work on the farm. Come on, they're sausage fodder. Why else would anyone keep pigs?
Well, because,
Pig cheese, pig wool.
well,
Pigs are expensive, pink and annoying, but they're also delicious, which is why we breed so many of them. There might be a few polar bears left if more people wanted one for breakfast.
what?
Where are the pigs, Daddy? In the zoo. More mushroom risotto, anyone? Oh, not so caring now. Face it, you want to hound a species to extinction. Me, I just want to eat some meat.
Shit.
Exactly.
All right, then. Here, puss. There's a hammer under the sink.
Gotcha.
And not a word about this to Wendy.
That was good, man.
All right.
that brought up a couple of things. One was to mind. One was one of the coolest things. I think you told me this. Well, but it was about the vegetarians, or maybe I heard you talk about it. Was that you will find meat eaters, when they have vegetarian guests, will cater to those vegetarian guests and make a vegetarian meal. However, if you're a meat eater and you go to a vegetarian's house, there's no fucking way you're getting a meat diet meal from them, or it's rare that you would. And I think that's a very good point and pretty, well, it says it right there.
Jacqueline cooks vegan food here a lot because Fred is vegan and Fred's awesome.
Yeah.
And so, and Jocelyn loves to spoil everybody, including Fred. And
Does Fred cook you guys meat?
Well, no. Fred's
Probably.
never going to cook us meat, but at the same.
But it's probably against. A lot of vegans. I think most vegans are vegan because they don't want to hurt the animals, right? It's not that. Or, I mean, well, I think there's a lot that go for the health side where they just think it's healthier not to eat meat, which I think isn't true. It depends on what kind of meat you're eating and where you're getting it from and all that. But then I think a lot of people that are claiming vegetarian start down that path because of the animal harm thing.
I think that there's probably 50 different reasons why people go vegan and why they're doing the vegan thing. Sometimes it's for health, sometimes it's for ethical treatment of animals. So there's lots of reasons, and I gotta say that I really respect people making the vegan choice. I mean, I think about this. They're a lot of them are doing it because they're sacrificing bacon because they believe they're making the planet better for everybody. And so for the goodness of everybody, they're sacrificing bacon and, steak and burgers and eggs and all of that.
I think
I appreciate that they're trying. I really do. I mean, I think that that's a pretty significant sacrifice. And so that I think is very cool. Now, the part that is not cool is when they're trying to insist everybody else has to eat the way that they eat, and they get angry about it.
I have no problem. I have no problem with vegans unless they're doing exactly what you're saying. Yeah, if they're trying to push it on me or something like that, I don't like that.
I don't mind them trying to coax me to vegan.
Sure, but not
That's cool.
but judging me and being like, you're a fucking bad person. Going back to the judging, I don't mind if you judge me, but to like say I'm a bad person because of it or something like that, I don't like that. Yeah,
that's the perfect example of the judgy thing we were talking about earlier. So
yeah.
then they'll judge you and say that you're a bad person because you eat meat, and then my point is that if they judge me and think I'm a bad person because I eat meat, I'm totally cool with that. And what I'm thinking is that that's a pretty fucked up set of values. And so then if that distances them from me, that kind of seems to be keeping fucked up people away from me. So I think it worked out. Great. I'm for the judging. Judge away. And if you think that I'm a horrible person because of whatever I do, that's cool. You should keep away from me. The only thing that bothers me with the whole judgy thing is it's like they've determined I'm a bad person, but they keep coming back and and it's like, their life revolves around my life. So I'm the center of their universe, which is funny that they're so pissed off and I'm the center of their universe. That seems weird to me, though. You've decided that you hate something or somebody, and now they're the center of your life? That's twisted, man. So I'm judging them. They're fucked up.
Brian says, Paul, you're their demigod.
Yeah. Maybe so. Or maybe God's not quite the right word they're looking for.
Yeah. I think that if you're into vegetarian or vegan stuff for health reasons, like you really believe it's more healthy, fine. I mean, I can try and convince you that otherwise, but that's fine. Now, if you're in it for the save the planet thing, I think you would be doing the planet or save the planet, or save the animals, or help make people healthier, kind of thing. I think you would be doing far better good by eating meat, not from like factory farms and stuff like that, CAFOs. Because if you're eating meat in those other markets where it's like local, backyard, farm-raised meat, good raised meat, and you're encouraging that market and growing that market so that it can beat the CAFO market, I think you're going to do better than completely ignoring it altogether. You're going to help the people trying to do the right thing with animals.
I mean, now we're talking about the stuff that is in the book Omnivore's Dilemma.
Yeah.
And so, which I think if we're, we could talk about that book, which is an amazing book. But I guess that the important thing to me is, we're talking a little bit about, the judgy stuff, and we're talking a little bit about different dietary paths. And I've had a bunch of people say that they can't come out to Permies.com because it's an obviously meat eaters site. And I kind of feel like, wait, we've got a whole forum dedicated to veganism, and we've got, forums for Omni and Paleo too.
And you have vegans that live there.
And I got a vegan, and so it's kind of like, but of course what they're really trying to say is that they believe everybody should be vegan, and there are obviously people that we are allowing to be at Permies.com. Now, here's a big thing for me. I have a video on YouTube that's called Respectful Chicken Harvest. Mm-hmm. And I haven't had so much lately, but for a while I was getting like 3 to 5 a day of psycho vegan stuff. Mm-hmm. If you're a vegan, why are you looking at this video? But I mean, the hate spew from the vegans was amazing. And it's like, I don't know. It's a little odd to consider, like, okay, I feel great and I want everybody to live their life this way, but it's like, is all this hate spew, does it come from being a vegan, or is it like you just happen to be a vegan that's like, doing it?
No, I'm sure they got hate spew about a lot of things. I think it's just their point of view in the world. Like, I'm sure they're hate spewing about politics, and they're hate spewing about all kinds of stuff, TV shows or whatever.
All right. I think that there's many, and I think one of the things I hope to accomplish here is to grow food in a way that's better than what's available at your best grocery stores. Yeah. And then I want to see if I can have raw dairy here that does not cause me the problems that I'm used to experiencing with dairy. So then I can get back into, because when I was younger, I drank milk, like several glasses of milk a day. But we had a dairy cow at my granddad's place, and so we drank that. So I would like to, I wonder how a lot of my stuff will be with this much higher quality food, with very rich soil, from good soil structure, from a no-dig kind of scenario. And I think that at this point in time, I think that the best food that you can buy at your favorite organic grocery store is going to be the organic pasture-fed beef. And the reason is that the cattle are eating from a polyculture, and your organic carrots are being grown in a monocrop. Yeah. So, and those organic carrots are being grown not only in a monocrop, but it's a heavily tilled monocrop.
And there's a lot more deforestation going on with those kind of crops than there are with animal crops.
That's true too. So I kind of feel like I feel like the food that I eat is it's probably better than most people. I'm probably, for quality of food that I eat, it's probably in the top 2%. But I'd like to grow food that's in the top 0.01%. And I think that'll make a big difference for not only my health, but the health of others. For the here.
Another point that came to mind watching that video was if you're a vegan, that doesn't mean you don't have to have animals or you can't have animals. I get it if it's the captivity thing, but you can still have animals without the captivity thing, as Paul can attest to with chickens. But having the animals, they serve more purpose than just meat. And this is a big thing in permaculture. We look at all of the things the animal produces and all of the things the animals need. Well, they produce more than just meat. Like if you look at the example of pigs are more than just meat. You can use them for a lot of different things. You can use them to make ponds. You can use them to take down certain crops that you want out of an area. Things like that. You can use them for their manure. And there's a lot more purpose. And once that pig is ready to go, you can use them to better your community by sharing that meat with them, if you're not going to eat it.
So I think a lot of vegans are going to be upset about a lot of the things that you said.
That's fine.
Because it's going to be, you shouldn't be exploiting these animals, kind of a thing. But I think you're right. I mean, it's like, I think that in a full farm ecosystem, in permaculture, then you're going to have a plethora of life, which is going to include a variety of different animals. And the land thrives with the animals being there on the land. And so then, it's a symbiotic relationship with Mother Nature.
Yeah, absolutely.
And without these animals, I think that if you're a vegan, then you would want to have animals in your system then as well. It would be better. Now, a lot of them are like, oh, I have deer come through, and the wild turkeys, and I have,
Well, you could also say you're coaxing those deer onto your property with the things you're growing. Like, that's not right.
I think that as we explore this space, I think that there's fuel for vegans and non-vegans to have a war. And what I'd rather do is embrace both.
Yeah, I think they can work together a lot better than against each other. For example, if you had a vegan and a non-vegan living on the same farm, you could have the vegan raising this animal to take care of things so that it's raised the most ethically way possible by their standards, and then the other person growing vegetables for that vegan while they get the meat from the vegan's animals. Things like that, which I know is probably against the vegan code or whatever, but I think there's a lot of room to work together.
I think that different vegans are going to have different sets of veganism that they're comfortable with. So Fred's a very strict vegan. He doesn't eat honey, although we've talked about like how there might be this 1% chance of a certain scenario where honey would be okay for him to eat, but it's like he's pretty serious about it. And Fred is a great guy, and Fred is never, in fact, we'll be eating meat, and Fred will sit down with us, and he'll have a vegan meal, and it all is very, very smooth. So I think hopefully I don't say anything that pisses off Fred, and I know Fred never says anything that pisses off me, and he's never been like, you have to eat vegan, or he's never. So, but I think that there's like this a massive group of vegans that are totally cool with people choosing their own path, and I like to think that we've got a good group of everybody that's not a vegan that is cool with the vegans, and I want to encourage that path. That's the path I would really like to encourage, because I see a lot of this militancy on both sides, and I kind of wish for a militancy active me in this space. I think that it would be good for every person to find their own thing, and we're cool with everybody doing their own thing. I think that's just the good and right and decent thing to do.
Yep. I'm all for living however you want to live, as long as you're not trying to force me to do it.
Yeah.
Let me live how I want to live. You live how you want to live, and I'm sure we'll get along just fine.
I think some vegans might have animals in their permaculture systems, and I think some vegans don't.
Yeah.
And
Brian asks, why no honey? Is it something about using bees and taking their resources? Yeah, I think that's exactly what it is, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, so we were talking earlier about like using the pigs to help seal the pond, and it's like, well, is that cool or not? And so some vegans would be like, that's not cool. And some vegans, I've heard of, there's this real beautiful woman over in the Seattle area, Bellingham, and she calls herself a Beegan. And so she's a vegan, and she eats honey.
Oh, I thought you were going to say eat bees.
No, she doesn't eat bees. She's in a couple of my videos.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and so I kind of, somebody was saying something about how Paul Wheaton's videos always have these especially beautiful women in them, and it's like, yeah. Well,
yeah. I have heard that if it wasn't for the beekeeping industry, the major industry of beekeeping, that colony collapse disorder would have already wiped out all the bees.
Okay, anyway. Say that one more time, because I'm thinking I believe it's the opposite. But go ahead and say it one more time.
If it weren't for the industry of beekeeping, all of these beekeepers making money off of having bees, if it weren't for them, the problem with colony collapse disorder that we're experiencing, which it seems to be the general consensus, is from carbon and the air pollution and the spraying of plants and stuff like that, we would have already lost most, if not all, of the bees in the world.
Okay, I do. My belief is the opposite of that.
You think beekeepers are killing all the bees?
I think, yeah. Oh, yeah. Absolutely. I believe it very strongly.
Why is that?
So, the bees are succumbing to weakness. I mean, it's like, let's say you are seriously run down. I'm going to have you run laps 14 hours a day, and I'm going to have you do all this exertion. And then the only thing I'm going to allow you to eat is going to be whatever you can find in the wild on your own, only I'm going to take that from you, and I'm going to feed you back just plain sugar water. In fact, I'll let you flavor it. I'll give you Kool-Aid. Kool-Aid's the only thing you can drink. Okay. Now, here's I mean, my video, I've got a video about colony collapse disorder. And in it, I think I list off 12 different things that we do. One of them is that, and I, as part of my colony collapse disorder video, I went and I interviewed several conventional beekeepers. And they're talking about how they've got like 25,000 hives, and then they'll move them 6,000 miles a year. And they'll take
almond fields or whatever. Yeah.
Right. The almond industry gets like, I think it's 70% of the bees. When the almonds are in bloom, 70% of all the bees in the United States, of all the honeybees in the United States, are at
those,
the almonds sites.
Mm-hmm.
So, but they get moved around to the different kinds of fruits and berries and whatnot. So basically, think about it this way: when you've got a bee colony and your native places to hang out, like in an old hollowed-out tree or something like that, then and then you go and you get inside the hive and everything's good, and then you go outside to go get some sweet-ass nectar, and then the door is blocked. Is that part of your natural thing?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, no, it's not. And then when it finally opens, you've been moved 1,000 miles away. And it's like, whoa, everything has changed. It's like we're on a different planet. And so I mean, do you think that that's like making the bees like good? Not to mention,
no.
yeah.
There's
So,
far better ways to do it, I think. You won't make as much money, which is why they do these horrible practices, or some of the horrible practices that they have. But yeah.
does it stress the bees?
Yes.
And then when you make a long list of all the different kinds of things that they do to stress the bees, which includes, we're going to give you foundation that's already set to a size that's bigger, so that way you can go and haul more honey.
Mm-hmm.
And now you end up having more time in that cell as you're, growing into a bee. Then that's when the mites attack, and then the mites, become your parasites. And then so now you've got a mite infestation. Then you hose the whole thing down with poisons in order to try to poison the mites, with the idea that you're going to put just enough poison in that kills most of the mites, but only kills a few of the bees.
Mm-hmm.
And that this is so there's this whole miticide toxins in everything in there. Now, do you suppose that stresses the bees?
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. But that doesn't answer the question of
taking away their honey and giving them back sugar water. Does that stress the bees?
Of course. Yeah.
So now, I'm saying there's like 12 different things that they do that stress the bees. And so my question to them is, what the fuck did you think was going to happen?
Right, but we're seeing colony collapse disorder happen on like hobby beekeeping farms as well, where they're not doing that kind of stuff. It's just someone's backyard or wherever, and they got some hives, and they're giving them, they're making their feed for the winter is just their own honey back to them.
So we've got all these people that are raising bees on their own, and they're trying to learn how to do it. So now you've got this hobbyist beekeeper who is putting in way too much miticide, who is swapping out the honey at an inappropriate time, and feeding them back not only sugar water, but really low quality sugar water that might not even be prepared correctly. So you've got all the problems of the commercial bee industry only being done on a more fucked up scale, in a more fucked up way. And so is that, if it's done in a more fucked up way, but they're not moving the hive around, I think that they're adding stresses of a different kind. Now, the thing is, I listed off 12 things, not right now, but in my little video, I listed off 12 things. And all I'm saying is that if it was only 2 or 3 things, the bees would roll with it. The bees would be okay.
Mm-hmm.
But you get up to where it's 7 or 8 things, something's got to give.
Yeah.
And now I just recently finished reading The Song of Increase by Jacqueline Freeman. What a magnificent book. Now, I've exchanged a ton of emails with Jacqueline where I'm talking to her about all this stuff, but it's a radically different bee book. And at first I thought, damn it, Jacqueline, that's a stupid title. And then I read the book, and it's like, damn it, Jacqueline, that is the perfect title. And so,
for those that want it, I have posted it in the notes. Those watching in the Zoom. Otherwise, it'll be in the show notes. That book.
So in the book, and it basically, I am an arrogant fucker, and so my emails to Jacqueline were like, I want you to rewrite the book, okay? And here's all the stuff you're going to say in the next edition, okay? So
How'd that
poor
go?
Jacqueline. So I got a lot out of the book, and I want her to go farther. I want her to repolish the whole book, and I got ways I wish for her to repolish it. And so, but the key is I know this. I've been to Jacqueline's place many times, and her husband Joseph, his whole thing is kind of doing that horse whisperer thing, but he kind of feels like, yeah, doing the horse whisperer thing, that's like level 5, and then what Joseph does is more like level 8.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's like the horse whisperer thing is kind of like, yeah, that's weak. But I know that what both of them do is they go out with their animals and they will sit with those animals for days. So Jacqueline has hundreds and hundreds of hours spent in sitting with the bees. She's got like this elaborate setup so she can go and sit out there with the hives all day long, every day. And that's what she does. And she listens and she watches. She's obsessed with this. And it's like, so I'm gonna say a thing, and almost everybody watching this is gonna think they're gonna turn it off because they're thinking I'm full of shit. And they're thinking Jacqueline's full of shit. And it's like, that's totally cool. You think whatever you want to think. You go ahead and judge me and you judge Jacqueline, and this will all work out great in the end. So Jacqueline believes that she has set up a form of communication with the bees. Now, and frankly, I believe that she has. Now, Willie Smits was out here a couple years ago, and the dude speaks 40 languages, and he has had conversations with, and of course the big thing he's famous for is saving orangutans.
Mm-hmm.
And so he believes that orangutans have a pretty impressive language, and it's their language, not where somebody's taught them sign language or something like that. Their language. And he believes that for several different animals, he has learned some of their language. Now, of course, there was a documentary a couple years out about turkeys, and this guy spent years hanging out with a flock of turkeys or something like that, and he came up with like 17 different sounds that they make that mean, 7 different things. So I think that there's some validity down this path. In fact, I'm just simply choosing to believe that Jacqueline does have this communication with the colony, and that it's unconventional and weird. Okay? And that she's trying to convey some of what she's learned from these conversations into this book. And I really enjoyed the book. But the key is that what the bees seek is like a glorious divide, if you will. So basically the swarming. It's kind of like it's how a full-on colony reproduces. And we all have sex drive, and I'm not saying that this is sex drive at all, because it's not. But what it is like, if we do a good job as being a worker bee, then we will get to experience in our lifetime the great divide, the glorious division, where basically they swarm. They're gonna go out into the world and create a new colony somewhere, and leave behind a new colony. And so it's like this is the glorious thing that they hope to do someday, but it's only if you work. And part of it is like, okay, there's a sound that goes throughout the hive, and the whole colony makes a different sound based on different things that they're doing.
Mm-hmm.
And so when things are good and they're bringing in lots of nectar, then they're making lots of honey, and they're laying more eggs, and they're growing. It's the song of increase.
Mm-hmm.
And so this is what they're doing right now. Everything is optimal. Everything is grand and glorious and awesome. They're growing. And if they do enough of it, they can have the glorious division. I just kind of think that what an amazing way to describe the life of a colony.
Yeah.
And I really enjoyed this. So the key is that there are stresses that happen naturally. And then there's unnatural stresses, like your door's been plugged and you're on a truck and you're bumping around going down the road.
Yeah.
And it's like, the fuck is going on?
Yep, absolutely.
And so that's a stress. Another thing is like the miticides are a stress, the sugar water is a stress. Opening up the hive, just opening it up to inspect it is a stress. That's not cool. That's not okay. This is, I mean, if they're inside of a trunk of a tree, the tree doesn't just open up, every week. So there's then we can start talking about different kinds of pesticides. Now, for colony collapse disorder, there's a bunch of movies that have come out, and there's been all these nicotinoids are what's causing it. That's part of the systemic stuff inside of this plant, and the bees are getting that. And I'm thinking, like, no, that's part of it.
Mm-hmm.
Part of it. In this really beautiful book that Jacqueline wrote, which is, I'm going to grant you, it's quite purple. It's quite purple, and I loved it. But then again, the way I like to do permaculture is different than the way a lot of other people like to do permaculture. And now, one of the things that Jacqueline wrote about, which she observed, is that there was a worker bee that had gone out and got a full load of pollen, and then came back to the hive and, was ready to drop off the load. And so arrived, and the guard bees stopped her. Now, Jacqueline noticed that the wings on this bee were pretty beat up. So this is an older...
Been working a lot.
And so this is, and so then the guard bees would not let her in. She's got a full load. She's not allowed to come inside. And so she tried to go in once, twice, and 3 times. On the 3rd time, she kind of caught the clue. You're too old. You know what you have to do now. And so she turned around and she just walked the opposite direction, elected to not fly away, but instead just fall to the ground. Now, Jacqueline saw all this and she kind of freaked out. She goes to rescue the little bee, and then she kind of, puts the little bee in and is like, "Don't worry, I'm a fucking giant. I will totally take care of those guards. Don't worry about it." But this bee was like, no, that's not for me anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like this extremely noble act, which is the colony is the most important thing.
Mm-hmm.
And for the sake of the colony, I need to step aside, and it is now my time. Jacqueline never said anything, but when Jocelyn and I were talking about the book, it's like, I wonder if colony collapse disorder is a little bit like that. And it's like, there are these different songs that happen in the different hives, and sometimes a hive knows it's just all fucked up. And that, and it's about the genetics. And it's like, you know what? We gave it a shot, and everything, and we've got, and as part of the storyline, part of what Jacqueline says that the bees have told her is that in order for good genetics to win out, you have to be able to recognize when you're sitting on shitty genetics, and your whole colony needs to check out. And so it seems like having good genetics, and of course, you know, all of your history is nothing but good genetics. And it's like, but there are the indicators, and it's like, now we know we are not to continue.
Mm-hmm.
And so there's the song of increase, and there's the song of run away.
Of sacrifice.
Yeah, it's the song. Yeah, it's time. We need to end this genetic pool now. This is not a good genetic pool because we're not making a go of it.
We've seen that in societies too, of human societies. You look at like the good and bad, but I mean, you see like the Japanese with the kamikaze kind of during the war, the kamikaze pilots and stuff. You see it with the people that blow themselves up from some Middle Eastern countries now, and there's those kind of societies. But you'll see it with Buddhists where they make huge sacrifices for their people, and you see it good and bad in society as well.
So I think that the important thing is that if you go and you stress a colony enough, and there's a lot of ways that the conventional beekeepers are stressing these colonies. So if they get stressed enough, then I think that what you're seeing is, you know, abort mission.
Yeah.
And it's like, now, I'm not saying it's proven. A lot of people, I'm sure 90% of the people that are watching the show have now left because they think I'm a psycho twit. And that's cool. I think that there's something there, and that's a strong possibility. It makes sense to me. And I frankly, after reading Jacqueline's book, I just feel like honeybee is an incredibly noble creature. Now, I know that Jack really likes Michael Jordan, and you've got a bunch of stuff with Michael Jordan.
I like Mike. He's a great guy. Yeah.
And I've exchanged some emails with Michael Jordan, and despite the fact that I hit Michael Jordan when I was a kid, Michael Jordan, and then I went on Jack's show and I pointed out that there was a guy that said that called himself the Bee Whisperer who did awful things.
That was a different Bee Whisperer, right?
Totally different dude calling himself the Bee Whisperer.
Yeah.
And of course, Michael Jordan calls himself the Bee Whisperer, and it turns out there's about 200 people who call themselves the Bee Whisperer.
Yep. Same with dog whisperers and
not Bee Whisperer, but the Bee Whisperer. That's cool. That's cool. Jacqueline Freeman is the woman I go to for anything about honeybees. And,
yeah, I'd like to meet her, actually. I'd really like to meet her.
You will. She'll be here at the PDC.
Awesome.
And she's amazing. And if you ever get a chance to be invited to her place, you should go. And again, this is going to be really purple, but man, there is like some kind of cool vibe at her place.
I'd love to go hang out with the bees. I like being around bees. I really enjoy it. When we're at Mike or filming the beekeeping courses and stuff, I love being out there with them. All right, I promised a story, and it's a funny story to lead out the show with. We're going to close it up here. I do want to say something real quick, Paul, because a couple of people have commented on it. Sometimes your mic gets quiet, and I think it feels like because this has happened multiple shows. There's some kind of like software thing going on that does it.
I think what it is that I start yelling.
Yeah, and it's like trying to equalize.
And then it tries to lower the volume, and that takes a long time till it brings the volume back up. Yeah. So it sucks to watch it live, but of course you're going to futz with the video before uploading it, and you'll hit the normalize button, and then it'll fix all of that as it gets uploaded.
Yes, yes. There's unfortunately the normalize button doesn't always fix it, but that's not a big problem because I can see it when I'm editing. You can see like me talking, Paul talking, and so I just cut, raise, good, go. Okay, so it's a funny story. Well, I don't know if it's funny, but it's a story. So I have a beagle. I love my beagle. He's a great dog. Love beagles. The problem with beagles, have you ever owned a beagle, Paul? Or been around them much? Or hounds at all? Okay. They when they smell something, they could give a shit less about anything else, especially you saying, "Hey, come here, stop." Okay, so I have a beagle. Fairly new beagle. He is 10 months old. My family has had beagles. My mom still has a beagle. Great dog. Anyway, new beagle. I've owned him for 3 months. I decide, so beagles are kind of like personal companions. Like, you just bring them places with you, and they're your best friend, and they're always with you. Because once they smell something, they can be gone for all day or 2 days. If they get onto some kind of a deer that is gone, kind of smells. And I've heard stories of people like bringing their hounds out. They smell something. It's not till a day or two later that they come back, and they do come back to the same place they were, but they're just gone. So, dog is Moose is his name. Moose is outside. We're checking on the chickens, which my egg production has gone down recently. I don't know why. It's about 40% lower in the last month or a couple weeks. At any rate. So I'm just checking on the chickens, and Moose smells something, and he's gone. He goes on his rant. Well, I also at this time have to go to town. I have to go to town. And so I'm like trying to get him to come. He doesn't care what I'm saying, so he's gone. I'm like, okay, well, today's your day to just hang out and have fun, buddy, because I gotta go. So I go to town. I'm in town, and I get a call from a neighbor saying, I have your dog. Of course. So I go to pick up the dog from the neighbor, and the neighbor's like, right after I called you, he started acting funny, and here he is. And so I get Moose, and Moose is fucked up. Moose is having seizures and like dopey as shit. Like, he would have a seizure, he'd be laying in his bed and totally unresponsive. You could shake him. He didn't care. Like, he was just done, gone. Really fucked up. So I take him to the vet. I'm like, my dog got into rat poison or something. I don't know, but he is like way fucked up. And the doc's, because at first I called my veterinarian friend, shared some videos with him, showed him like what's going on. And the veterinarian friend was like, you need to take him in. He's way less responsive than he should be. And I'm thinking, okay, does he have parvo? Does he, like, what's going on? I don't know. So I take him to the vet. Well, Moose, on his adventure, and probably at this person's house, I'm guessing, but I don't know, got into a lot of marijuana. They did a blood test, and he tested highly positive for pot. So he must have eaten someone's pot stash or found a pot plant or something, but he had eaten it, and apparently pot will really fuck up a dog. And so this morning, so I had to leave him there all night, so they put an IV in him and basically gave him fluids all night to flush his system of pot. And of course, as soon as they come back with the test results, they come outside, they're like, do you have a lot of marijuana? I'm like, no, I don't have any marijuana. And so they're explaining the situation. I'm like, okay, first of all, picked it up from some person's house. I'm just saying, this is not my fault. I'm sorry. So anyway, they put him on an IV, flushed his system. I picked him up this morning. He's still pretty fucked up. Like, he can walk now, at least. He kind of walks. He kind of stumbles around, but he walks, and he's definitely out of it. But they said by tonight he should be back to normal puppy stage. But holy shit, I don't know how much pot you gotta smoke or eat or whatever he did. Eat, obviously, but to get fucked up like that, he was really, I've never seen anybody like seizures. I didn't know dogs got seizures from pot. That's crazy. I knew that pot was not good for dogs, but I didn't know it was this like crazy. Anyway, so that's my that's what I did yesterday and this morning. Fun times. Hey, how's your egg production, by the way? I wanted to ask you real quick before we get off.
Our big mission this year is that we're putting in paddocks. So I mean, the moment that we arrived here, the people that were living here were like, let's raise chickens. And my position is like, I don't want to feed the local coyotes. I kind of feel like it's really important that that we protect the chickens from the local predators. That's critically important. And I feel, I mean, when it comes to chicken food, then you're talking about basically, if you feed them organic chicken feed, that organic chicken feed has somehow been classified as not fit for human consumption for some reason. And so then at the same time, it's kind of like, okay, let's say you still get this chicken feed, and which has something fucked up about it, and then you feed it to their chickens and they'll eat it. Then it's kind of like, now I've got people commenting that my sound levels are really almost inaudible. So you feed this to your chickens, and then it's kind of like you're getting eggs and meat out of a system where the amount of money that you're spending just on feed is about the same as if you just went and bought organic eggs or organic chicken. So it's like, this is a system that's really not working. I would rather grow amazing chicken feed and then put out like store-bought chicken feed, organic store-bought chicken feed, and then the chickens turn their nose up at it. They don't want it. We've got much better food that we're providing them that's growing right now. That's the environment where I want to raise chicken. And we have one paddock built, but you need more than one.
Yeah.
And so that's our highest priority this year. And then the well broke.
Yeah. Okay. All right, guys. Thanks again for another great show and showing up, and I hope you enjoyed it. And we will see you next week. Have a great day, Paul.
Bye.